There being 19 ayes and 12 nays, school choice has come to Texas.
A vote in the Texas Senate means families are one step closer to being able to use tax dollars to pay for their children's private education.
We're looking out for kids that need help the most and to make sure their families, they make the decisions on the path and education that's best for them.
Legislation to create education savings accounts heads to the governor. We speak to the senator behind the bill, how he's responding to concerns, and what changes could still happen. Texas Democrats pushing back after the vote on ESAs, the tactic that's blocking votes on key legislation, and how it could put bipartisan priorities in jeopardy. As lawmakers' plans for ESAs move forward, some private schools tell us they won't be able to take every student applying for the opportunity. We investigate what that means for families.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. The Education Savings Account bill is now in the hands of Governor Greg Abbott. The Texas Senate concurred with changes made by the House to Senate Bill 2. This week, we're taking an in-depth look as Texas families move closer to being able to use tax dollars for their children's private education.
There being 19 ayes and 12 nays, school choice has come to Texas.
With Thursday's vote, the Senate agreed to take the House's changes on Senate Bill 2, avoiding a prolonged battle to reconcile differences between the two chambers' versions of the bill. But members on both sides of the aisle raised concerns. Lubbock Republican Charles Perry worried about the potential of online-only schools getting ESA funds.
I think we've all understood what online instruction is and is not, and it's not the answer to educate 99.9% of the kids.
Also during debate, Democrats pleaded with their colleagues to reinstate a provision preventing current lawmakers from taking advantage of the program, which the House took out.
We asked for a bill that wasn't about self-dealing. We asked for a bill that wasn't about helping our children. We asked for a bill that didn't have the stain of that possible corruption.
The bill's author, Senator Creighton, hinted the so-called self-dealing clause could be addressed later in a separate bill, but he underscored the importance of moving the legislation forward.
They will one day understand how they came to receive an opportunity that they never even knew didn't exist prior to their receipt of it. And one day, long down the road, when they are adults and they have a family of their own, they're going to be thankful to each of you.
Once Governor Abbott signs the bill, the rollout will start to get the program established for the 2026-27 school year. We want to go a little deeper now. Joining us is Senator Creighton, the author of Senate Bill 2. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for being here. I know it's been a busy week, but before the vote to concur, we heard concerns from both sides of the aisle, like things like online schools, children of lawmakers receiving ESA benefits. In some cases, you said that you have been open to legislation to address those concerns. Why not try to do that in SB 2 itself instead of coming back with other legislation?
Yeah, you know, we've got a strong framework of supports for the students that need help the most, and that's always been the goal and the objective for the design of the ESA itself. And as many states have done all over the nation, as 2/3 of the country have adopted expanded school choice, we're following the same pattern, that the bones of the program itself and the goals within it, we feel very comfortable where we've landed on these.
So are you saying that at some point in the future, whether it's this session or maybe next session, there is the chance that the ESA program could be revisited?
Certainly. I mean, we had a great discussion yesterday, Senator Perry from Lubbock and I, as you mentioned, related to online schools and online learning, and he had concerns that there might be an uptick in the number of students that would fall into those categories, and ultimately, you know, we want students in-person learning to the greatest extent that we possibly can, but online learning is also very important as well. We have students that have been victims of human trafficking, that have been victims of bullying, that have survived fentanyl, that have a certain special needs where those online learning opportunities are important, and they're included in the legislation.
Since we're talking about oversight and transparency there, you know, overall, the ESA program,
How are you going to go back next session and make sure that what we've seen in the 2 years prior is actually working?
Sure, it's a great question. You know, the one thing that is important and what we've seen from data across the nation is for a new school choice plan like Texas will have, we need to build an appropriate runway with the right kind of supports and the framework to truly help the families with a successful launch. So our opportunities within Senate Bill 2 for our families across the state, that will start in 26 and 27 to make sure that there's appropriate time for the comptroller to build this program. And so we'll be back in session in January of 27 to make any needed adjustments or calibrations, as we always do with any bill that we pass.
And that could include some oversight of how everything is going.
Certainly could. There's great oversight in the legislation now, but there will always be on the finance side or the technology side some type of adjustment that we'll need to make with the feedback that we receive, and that's what the legislature does. We monitor the bills that we pass. We're reviewing 10,000 bills now. We'll pass about 1,000 of them, and for those bills that pass related to education or the grid or the border, healthcare, whatever those bills may be, we're always coming back in to monitor the need for adjustments.
So you've got this down, obviously, because you've been fighting for this for well over a decade in the legislature. What does this final vote for final passage mean to you?
It means so much to me because it's somewhat tragic that a narrative has been built that you can't support your public schools and public school teachers and all the students that rely on public schools, and also build a framework for additional options for kids that need help the most. The bill being called a scam or a rich kid bill and all of those false narratives, we know who this bill is going to be helping, and we're so happy to be at this point in time to see the passage of the legislation, and the bill soon will be headed to the governor's desk. And these families that are going to get help from this expanded option in education, just seeing their faces and understanding the potential and future for these kids is all I'll ever need as a legislator when I look back on my career.
All right, Senator Brandon Creighton, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Public schools are not the only ones worried about ESAs. We investigate why some private schools say they're wary of strings that might be attached to taking taxpayer dollars. Texas Democrats try a new tactic after losing the vote on ESAs, why they're blocking votes on key legislation, and how it could shape the course of the session. Democrats in the Texas House started blocking votes on constitutional amendments. It's a move that could thwart some of Governor Abbott's top priorities. State Capitol reporter Adam Schwager joins us now. Adam, why is this happening and what's at stake here?
Yes, as you mentioned, House Democrats refusing to vote for these constitutional amendments. They need 2/3 House of each house to pass and get sent over to the voters. Right now, the makeup in the House is 88 Republicans, 62 Democrats. That means they need at least 12 Democrats to jump over with all the Republicans if they voted in a block to get these passed and sent on to the voters. So, as we saw earlier this week, a lot of them were getting pushed over, and then one was finally brought to the floor. This is amidst all these reports of these threats happening, and then this terse exchange happened, which kind of confirmed what we were seeing.
I fully support this resolution,
Thank
but
you.
I called you last night and asked you to just have a brief delay in this bill, correct?
You did,
And
yes.
you agreed, and you gave me your word that you would delay it just briefly.
I did.
And that was a bipartisan constitutional amendment. It had co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle, but when it did end up getting brought to a vote, it failed. It only got 90 votes, 50 Democrats registering present, not voting there. And then when it got brought up the next day for a third reading, it was delayed until Monday. And as you mentioned, high stakes here. A lot of these proposed constitutional amendments include bail reform, which now that SB 2 has passed, has seemed to be a full court press for Abbott on that that needs constitutional amendments to pass. We also see water infrastructure, that's going to need constitutional amendments to pass. So if they take this to the extreme, these are big things that could be blocked by the House Democrats.
What's the long-term game plan here?
Well, right now, what we've seen is all of these things have gotten moved to Monday. I think that a lot of it initially started as a threat, a protest vote against what would happen if they didn't send that school choice, that education savings account legislation to the Texas voters. But the Texas House Caucus has admitted that time has come and passed. They just want more Democrat bills on the House floor. I mean, the Speaker of the House was put into that position by a coalition of both Republicans and Democrats in that highly contested speaker's race. But at the same time now, on Friday morning, we had a situation where some of the more conservative members of the House, they had shut down the House because they feel like there aren't enough conservative priorities reaching the floor. So it's just something we could see if this escalates. But right now, as we saw, everything got delayed until Monday. So I guess we'll see then.
Some dramatic inside baseball.
Exactly.
All right, thank you very much, Adam.
We're not going to change the way that we admit students and that we allocate scholarship funds based on any kind of ESA voucher.
The state's plan to pay for private schools with public funds might not cover tuition at some campuses. We investigate the impact on Texas parents coming up.
There are struggling parents in districts. It simply provides a choice.
What you are doing and professing is to give these children a 10-foot rope and they're in a 12-foot hole. How do you expect them to get out of it?
School choice will inject competition into the education process.
There are very powerful forces pushing this issue on us.
After Texas lawmakers sent education savings accounts legislation to the governor, private schools serving children with disabilities say they are wary of strings that might be attached to taking taxpayer dollars.
Yes, Kelly Wiley and our investigative team have been analyzing data from across Central Texas and found that even with help from the state, private schools will still be out of reach for many low-income families without significant financial aid and scholarships.
In the center of Austin's Terrytown, inside Ross and Saunders School, almost every inch of space is used as a classroom.
We turned our kitchen into classrooms because we were out of space.
The students here often learning in groups as small as 2.
And then I'll show you. This is a pretty common size for a math class.
Head of school Laura Steinbach said it's a model for teaching students who learn differently.
Light?
Light. Specifically those diagnosed with dyslexia and dysgraphia.
You want help?
Yeah.
Lightning. We're a community of educators who really care about getting it right for kids, but not just kids, for their families.
Students with disabilities and low-income families have been at the center of pitches from Texas's Republican leaders to let parents direct taxpayer dollars to private schools of their choosing.
We wanted to make sure that parents of low income are going to have the same opportunity that the wealthy have.
But under the most recent iterations of education savings accounts, private schools would still be unaffordable for the state's poorest students. Our team analyzed data from the Texas Association of Private Schools and found at least 52 accredited private schools in the state that focus on students with disabilities. 10 of those schools don't post their tuition and wouldn't share the amount with us. Of the 42 that did, data shows the minimum $11,500 education savings account allotted to students with disabilities under Senate Bill 2 would fully cover tuition at just 3 of those schools. But at the maximum of $30,000 for students with disabilities, the ESA would cover tuition at 26 of those schools. Ross and Saunders is a nonprofit, and its tuition for the 2025-26 school year is more than $37,000.
Let's say 20 families come to you and they can't afford to pay a dime more than what they were given.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys in a position where you can kind of make it up with financial aid? What would that look like?
Well, we have a lot of families already on financial aid. So if we have 20 new families coming in that also need financial aid and they need a substantial amount of support, then there are 2 answers. There's the now and there's the later. It means that now we probably couldn't serve all of them. The later means that we'd need to build toward increasing our financial aid account so that we have more money to give.
Down the road, Capital School of Austin is also one of 4 accredited Texas private schools in Austin serving students with disabilities.
Capital School is a pretty special place. We have very small ratio classrooms. All of our classrooms have either a speech-language pathologist or a special education teacher with a master's degree.
The Capital School shares similar concerns about a looming education savings account program.
We are actually a very low tuition rate relatively compared to other programs in the state. We run a pretty tight budget as it is. We're not going to change the way that we admit students and that we allocate scholarship funds based on any kind of ESA voucher. We have to maintain those low ratios, but we also have to be able to pay the teachers to be able to provide that therapeutic learning environment.
Stephen Aleman is the senior policy specialist with Disability Rights Texas. He testified before lawmakers this session on ESAs.
The parent truly believes this is a better option for him. Is your answer, if you can afford it?
If a parent has all the information, of course we respect that. It is a parental choice, of course. With regard to this legislation and the policy established, the next issue is the amount of the extra voucher enough to cover the tuition of that particular facility?
In some cases it would work, but maybe not all.
Correct. I want to be very clear that we don't dispute that there are no private schools that are very good at serving the needs of students with disabilities. Our concern is that you're really creating sort of a false hope that I can go with this new ESA grant to a private school and I'm going to replicate what I get at the public school, when the reality is that there's just such a small handful of schools that are really good at meeting their needs and their capacity to expand. It's sort of very unlikely that they can turn from serving maybe 20 students to 200 students, even in a school year or two.
We put all of our ideas together.
Truthfully, I'm afraid of the impact on education. The concept is amazing. To be able to give money to families that they can devote to schools that make sense for their families. What I worry about is the students whose families are not in a position to take advantage of those funds. And that is a lot of families.
The Private School Association has supported Senate Bill 2 this session. That is contingent on 4 requirements, including the ESA program having a religious liberty protection and private school autonomy language. On this, the association said some schools may wish to accommodate families using ESA by providing scholarships to cover any difference between the ESA amount and full tuition. This means more options and fewer barriers. The statement goes on to address parents directly, saying the choice is yours. Take advantage of this upcoming opportunity to empower your child's educational journey and discover a school that nurtures their potential.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Online now, we have maps showing tuition costs at private schools across Central Texas. They highlight which schools' tuition will be fully covered by the education savings accounts, and it's broken down by grade level. There are some schools that do not publicly disclose tuition information. Just go to our website and look for the links in this week's State of Texas story.
New accountability ratings out for schools across the Lone Star State. A look at the performance of school districts statewide, why the timing of the release is raising questions. After years of court battles, the Texas Education Agency released its A through F accountability scores of public schools from 2 years ago. The scores assign a grade to individual schools and districts to let the public know how they're performing. But a group of Texas Democrats argues these scores are not accurate and question the timing of the release. Capitol Bureau reporter Dylan McKim takes a closer look.
You can now see how your child's school performed in the 2022-2023 school year. Their individual grades are posted online. Only 13% of schools improved their grade level from the previous year, while 44% stayed the same. But 43% actually dropped a grade level.
But these numbers don't show how Texas schools are performing right now. In fact, the Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath even said parents will need to consider this when they research these scores themselves.
Parents are going to want to wait until they see ratings come out in August of this year.
Fighting for our kids.
But some Texas Democrats say these scores from 2 school years ago will have real negative impacts now that could close schools.
They literally change the goalposts.
One of the concerns Democrats have is the state raised the bar on schools, which is true. Take a look.
The TEA is required to change the metrics of the assessment every 5 years. That scheduled change happened in 2023, and Marath said it's intended to keep striving for better education.
To make Texas a national leader in preparing students for post-secondary success.
But school districts argued in court they were not given enough notice on the changes. Democrats also take issue with the timing of the release. On Thursday, the Texas Senate approved the school choice bill that will give public dollars to families to send their kids to private schools. It now goes to the governor's desk for signature.
That is a plan to rob our schools of their resources and hand it over to the profiteers so they can make money off of money that should be going to educate our kids.
Democrats say they want to change the way public schools are assessed, but Marath argues the current system shows good results.
So without that, you don't necessarily see the change of adult behavior happening in the school district to support this campus.
Dylan McKim, State of Texas.
The Texas House Committee on Public Education is expected to discuss a bill about changing school accountability next week. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle, and we'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.